I don't think they're obligated. All right, we are back from recess. Nicole, if you would come up for just a second, what we have on the agenda is just county budget, health and safety, library, and general fund. And I think next week's has planning. So I jumped the gun, I'm sorry. But here's the thing, I just have a question on your budget. For planning, have you been paid for last year's GIS work from the 911 funds usually?
No.
Okay, we did talk to Win, and I think he agreed to pay for this year,
Okay,
but he's going to do that in-house for next year.
okay.
So my question for next year is, how much do you generally, what's your general revenue for that?
Boy, it's varied from year to year. There were certain things that the 911 fund couldn't pay.
Okay,
And so the way that that always worked, I'd given the sheriff, starting with Rich, then Brenda, my budget. And just said, this is everything GIS, you submit it to the state and you pay me what you can. So my bill never matched what they sent back to me. So like this last one I sent to Win, and said, call me if you have questions, was for 18 something Win.
Yeah, $18,512.
And I never get that amount, but I don't know what it is that the state pays.
okay.
And so it's usually between 13 and 14,000.
So if this is done in-house by the sheriff's department, is this also the addressing, or is that a planning function? I mean, giving out the address labels for people and the addressing that you do. Is that connected with this?
I know that the state 911 cannot pay for signs.
Okay.
And so anything that I have to order for signs is generally just a wash. I charge $20 for an address, and that's really just to cover the cost of purchasing the plaque and the number. And so that is even money.
Okay.
So no, there's no other money coming in for GIS other than from the sheriff's department. And that's how my budget, when I very first came here to work for the county, Melissa Tumler was my supervisor at the time. And it was the same time that they were building the jail next door and installing the new 911 center and everything. Dave Klaus and Ben Naff had come to Melissa just before I was hired because they wanted that, at that time that was the Environmental Health and Planning Office. They wanted it to also be GIS, but then it would be funded through state 911. And so Melissa said, yes, I'll do it, but I need help. She hired me to do the GIS work and be her secretary, the sanitary and planning secretary. Obviously, over time, planning and environmental health separated, but with planning, I took the GIS side of it. And so that's just always traveled, I guess, with planning since then. And so I submit my budget to the sheriff's office every 6 months and highlight everything that's GIS because my budget, I'm sure you've seen it, but it's all planning. Planning for one half and then rural addressing for the second half. But it's all shown on one budget sheet. And so I submit that to the sheriff and say this is everything that was spent out of GIS funds. And then whomever it was at the time, would submit it to state 911 and they would pay off of that what they could. So it cost the county no money.
Okay. So, are you planning then to, when you do the GIS in-house, are you planning to send the same report to the state and the 911 funds will fund your GIS activities then? Is
No,
that the plan?
we don't send anything to the state. We just give approval. We have to call and say, this is what we do. And they say yea or nay.
Okay.
Whoever the 911 fund director is, and at this point, I don't even know. That's switched a couple times. Team member, Nick? I mean, you've had some conversations with them, but I think that's even switched from the last one, but that's normally what we do, so they tell us yea or nay if that's an option or not, so I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah.
So if the funds to support GIS from the planning department come from 911 and nothing over what's authorized from 911, you're taking this in-house with the sheriff's office, are you going to be putting that responsibility then on an employee?
No,
Okay,
no, that, basically what it is, it's not, part of our new records management system will actually cover that.
okay,
So that with Zerker, that's part of that whole conglomeration of, the whole package type thing. So, yeah, it's part of the Zerker system, so they'll take care of all that, so.
and, Nicole, is there, if we did do this change that's been proposed, is there a hardship on the community and the citizens that you foresee? Is this something when they come to you for a service, that they will no longer be able to come to you, and that they would maybe not get online? You think,
I guess I'm not
question's
sure,
convoluted.
I'm not sure what I would not be doing, that the sheriff's office would be doing. This is the first I've heard.
The mapping,
Okay.
GIS is in regards to mapping. I mean, my understanding is that every time you establish a new road, you have to send it into the state, right?
Not every time, every 3 months.
Every 3 months, so that
And then
information.
they send it to you.
Yeah, so it's, I mean, her responsibilities are all the same. I mean, you still have to have planning, you still have to have rural addressing. That's not gonna change anything. It's just, the fact is that GIS component of her downloading that information and sending it off is something they're gonna pull from the state. But my understanding is Nicole still has to send any new roads or anything else to the state every 3 months anyways. So, that was the thing that I was like, okay, what are we doing here? So, and of course, Ben and, you know, I was back in a different day.
I don't send roads to the state, however, I send them, well, it was Bullberry,
You
to
see,
them,
we
and they
have-
send them to your.
See, and we have Insight, which is part of another thing that we have, is this product of Bullberry. Now, instead of Bullberry, it's Insight, now it's what we've been paying for the last couple of years. So it seems like we're spending a lot of money kind of doing the same job. And so that's kind of why we went down this road.
So how are you going to get all your new roads and new addresses?
They do that for us.
They do.
So anytime you're.
Because they get it from me,
Correct.
so I'll still be doing work.
Well, you'll provide them, but they'll enter everything in our system for us as far as mapping goes.
But that's what they're doing now.
Which one?
What we did was that, you know, it seemed like a large bill, so we made some phone calls, talked about what was being done, and basically we got a quote that they would do it for $4,500 instead of the $18,000 a year. So I guess on our side of saving money and trying to save taxpayers' money is I mean,
But
why
it's
are we
not
paying
taxpayer
you
money.
$18,000 when we could pay them $4,500?
Because they still have to get the information from me.
But
But
the
you still
county
have to
still
do a
has
job.
to do your
You
planning.
still have a job to do, Nicole. You can't say, well, I'm not getting paid from the sheriff's office, I'm not gonna do my work. The county still has an obligation to have planning. They still have a.
Planning and
obligation.
GIS are different.
Okay, but they still, rural addressing falls under that GIS.
No, yes, which
It
is
does.
not planning.
Yeah.
They're two separate.
But that's part of the whole ensemble. I'm asked to cut $300,000 out of my budget. You want $18,500. I asked you for what exactly do you do for $18,000, and I didn't get
So
anything.
what point of order you didn't ask
Yeah.
me, you asked Debbie.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Okay,
There's
I want
nothing
this to
agreement.
stay civil.
Okay.
I had assumed you guys had already talked, so I am sorry to just be hitting you. I'm gonna ask that we'll talk about it next week, because this is a blindside, and I apologize, I assumed that you knew. We can discuss this, and maybe there's a solution here that works for both. Well, I'm gonna say that differently. There is a solution here that works for both sides. We just don't know what it looks like right now, but, we're partners. What's that? Yes, they do. So I'm gonna ask that you guys sit down together and chat about, the specifics of what each of you needs, each of you does, so that whatever decision we come up to next week addresses both your needs, and not only yours, but 6,000 residents of Broadwater counties, because that's who we serve. All right, so again, I apologize, and we will address this next week.
Perfect.
Is
Do
that
you have a
all right?
time?
No.
Okay, that's fine, I'll just pay attention to it.
Okay.
I just was gonna jot it down before I.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't
Before I
bring
forgot it.
the,
No, no worries.
the agenda with me for next week, but we'll do it under the budget.
Perfect.
Okay. All right. And it's very possible that the savings that you guys have found makes a lot of sense. But let's do it constructively and make sure everybody is communicated with as much as possible. All right. Thanks, Nicole.
Perfect, thank you.
So with that, you guys wanna come up? And what we'll do is talk about what we can do about the overall total budget. Does this potential GIS savings, is it reflected in the budget?
No.
Okay, all right, so that's an ace in the hole for us potentially.
And I'll put this out there, is what I was trying to get to, or allude to there, was the fact is that every meeting we sit in, I hear transparency, transparency, transparency. Okay, great. So for $18,500, please tell me what you're doing for me. And that hasn't happened. There's no agreement, there's no memorandum of understanding, there's nothing in place that says this is what the services I'm gonna do for you. That is why I have not paid that bill. Because I can't articulate to the people I work for, which is the same people you work for, on what I'm spending $18,500 on. So that's why the bill hasn't been paid. So I'm gonna put it out there. I'm trying to be very open with what we're doing and where we're going, and that's just one that without something, some sort of agreement to go off from past history other than a handshake, that dog don't hunt for me, and I would hope it doesn't hunt for you either. That's not one fund, so everybody thinks that's like a cash count. Unfortunately, it's not. We were 20,000 short in that last year from the state, from what we expected. And so, everybody thinks that the communications aspect needs to be paid for by the sheriff. I just got a call, we put repeaters up, so everybody had communications on the south end of the county, and everybody reverted the guy for the lease of the tower to me, and said, you need to pay it. DNRC, DES, fire, everybody says the responsibility of the sheriff to pay for the lease of those towers, tower space.
Is that the one there by the dam?
Yeah, the tossing repeaters that no one said anything
Isn't this
about.
the one where you were gonna send a letter to rural fire EMT?
No, no, this is the one where after the Eustis fire, no one had communications down there. We had the two old repeaters on Limestone, when they put the microwave up there. And so they put them down just here in the last week or so, they put these two repeaters down on the, old, microwave tower down there on Lombard Road. And DNRC was gonna pay half the bill, and I was gonna pay half the bill, and everybody's gonna be happy, and
Yeah,
the
we
road's gonna go
discussed
around.
that.
Mike Wonky brought it up in here.
Yeah.
Well, then the guy who owns the tower said, oh, you guys have, you need to lease it. And he was talking around $5,000 a month. And that's a problem. And so, kind of like the T1 system for the grant we're talking about trying to do is, that's $293,000. And I've asked fire board and everybody else to be involved, and I get the shrug of the shoulder, and it was like, well, the sheriff will take care of it. Well, like that, funds are limited. And so I don't know how I'm gonna do that, but, so it obviously don't take my abruptness as being not allowed to work. It's just that, it seems like every time I turn around, it's the sheriff's responsibility to pay for everything when it comes to public safety and public safety radio and everything else, and no one else seems to have a dog in the fight, because believe it or not, mapping and rural addressing also benefits the EMS system. It also benefits the fire system. So, but again, it's people looking at me to fix the problem.
So, is there a lease contract for this tower that was built?
Well, it's not built. It's not, it was one that's been standing there, and I believe it's been there for a better part of 2 decades. And so I didn't know anything about this. And this guy from Boulder, can't remember his name, but he called last week, and I said, send it to me, I'll look at it. I'm not gonna say, I'm gonna look at it and determine whether or not it's even viable. system back down. I'm not, DNRC doesn't wanna pay, DES doesn't wanna pay, and if we're talking 5,000 a month, that's 60 G a year, I don't think so. That I have a problem with. So, it sounded really good when we came out, but it seems like we have a little issue on the backside that, and he wants a 20-year lease, and, yeah, nope, so.
Yeah, because will that be obsolete after the T1?
No, that's the downfall.
When we have another lease that could be a model,
The
with,
one from BLM,
mhm.
yeah.
So, you know, if 5,000 a month, that's excessive, I'm with you, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I also think these partners need an official letter, and it needs to state what your expectations are clearly, a monetary amount that is fair, and either A, they pay it, or B, they don't, and then, you know, again, we've got a county attorney, there's gotta be some teeth, because these shouldn't all be falling on you, and the thing is when they all fall on you, it falls back to us. How are we gonna fund your budget if you're paying for all these other things? But your side of this is, we need an official letter to go out to all these different partners with expectations and confirmations that they'll pay it.
And I did with I've got a proposal from the T1 for the grant. So we have $148,000 in grant money for that digital system. And so, and then we had some money in 901 that I felt we could fairly easily survive with. And that was, I figured, $75,000 a time. It might be a little less than that now, but we can either lease it for 3 to 7 years as well to finish paying it off. So there's that option. But I asked the fire board, I asked the fire chief, and then I asked John Rouse with the fire board, and they went, what? And I, kind of the same thing that I did, but when I saw the prices, that's a lot of money. And so kind of back to your question, Nick, is that even though the digital system, you're still gonna have to have that analog on the backside, just in case you lose digital for whatever reason.
Sure.
You're gonna have to have communication still. So it's a double-edged sword.
So I guess we've already paid them to put them up?
Yeah. But, so hopefully this lease comes in here in the next couple of days. I won't be here. I'm actually gonna take my vacation of Thursday, Friday, and Monday to go fishing. But hopefully it comes in and we can figure something out. But I almost fell out of my chair when he said 5,000.
Yeah, especially when we have partnerships with other agencies that substantially less.
But this is private tower?
Well, it's owned by the ham operators, ham radio guys, is who has it. I'm not a ham radio guy.
I didn't even know they were still around.
Yeah.
I didn't think so.
Oh, and
I
the
thought they come
com-
off of that railroad one, tower, railroad's got a tower.
Well, I think that's part of it too, so, we'll see what the paperwork says. I just don't know. I mean, it's,
Yeah, 'cause that other tower, maybe it's up high enough. I just assume when they talk about this, it's that same what the railroad uses. I don't know.
it's one at the top.
Well, there's two up there.
Yeah.
One's over the top, drops over a little bit to 16, and the other one's more right up on.
I think this one's right, the one right on
I
top.
think that's one that they have to use. I don't think the other one.
Didn't close anything off.
Yeah, so,
So what we need to do is talk about leveling out some budgets. Yours is one of them, and you're not alone. But we need to figure it out. So one of the things, I spent some time this weekend going through the budget, and again, you're not alone. This is done across the board, but every year, and the commission is guilty of this too. You can see us on YouTube. So we spent last year $100 on operations. Okay, let's go ahead and do 120 this year. Everything just goes up without, kind of arbitrarily, I'm not saying that's how you guys do it, but it's indicative of every budget. Goes up from the fall, or from the previous year. Problem is, income is staying pretty much the same. We do have a 10.7 increase in the mills.
That's revenue.
But when the expenses increase by more than 10.7, there's an imbalance. And for you guys, you're also going to have to be clawing back, and it's not gonna happen overnight, from not having cash reserves. And that's been kind of the last 3 years that those were depleted. So what we need to do, we balanced your budget, Debbie did that from our work the other day. What we need to do now is figure out your reserves, and that's where the 300,000 we need to fund comes from. So one of the things that I noticed this weekend is, not everything was combined between public safety and detention. There's still two sets of numbers. And so if we treat them separately and do a
Did you
four-year
get the new
average.
sheets that she mailed out Thursday?
I didn't give it to everybody,
Oh,
just you
okay.
guys. Cause the one that they had, we didn't touch.
We're still off of our record though. Still got 739 in revenue, and there's 844,000.
So 739.
That's what it says here, under board,
Is that in the new one, Debbie?
What page is that?
Well, it's under revenue, it's the,
Oh, revenue?
yeah, page, this is part of the discussion of the last meeting, it's page 15 of the review. The board of prisoners, we have A101s for 844,000 and change, but this one still indicates 739.31.
Okay, yeah, so, that isn't corrected yet, but it will be. So, what is that number that it's supposed to be again?
844 and change.
Oh, my pencil. Thanks, Sam. 844 and change,
Yeah.
okay, so that helps. And it should be, I think we're just waiting on the, reconciling that one.
So this one's saying it's 761, 351.
Oh, well, see,
739.
okay, now here's, okay, you're looking under the 2302 fund. You need to look under the 2300 fund for that revenue line. Because remember, we're consolidating these two funds into one fund. But there'll be a separate revenue, the appropriate revenue under the 2300 for board of prisoners.
Where is that?
It'll be under 2300. So I need your revenue under the 2300 for the board of prisoners.
What page is that?
Okay, and I didn't see it.
2301,
So it'll be 2300.
miscellaneous revenue.
No, that should be.
Excuse me.
Board of prisoners, yeah, it's on the 9-2 page, 13 and 32. Okay, it shows 775.
Okay,
it's not
so
844.
this one is due to calculations made for the proposed.
Yeah,
So
So their
775.
cash account is where we'll see that 844 that Wayne is talking about, correct?
right, that's A1 is actual money in. That will
So-
show here, will show actual money in their cash account.
Okay, so the cash, at this point, does it show the 844? In the, not the 844, the additional 120,000, that wasn't reconciled before? Is the cash as of June 30th correct at this point?
As far as I know.
Okay,
For balance.
so.
I don't know if Doug's balanced yet, we won't be till they help us close. With the trust board, I don't have that account.
So let me
journal
ask you a
done.
question on 2302. Should this number be reflected here at this point?
Probably not. Because if Doug received it, and that's probably one of the journal entries, if there is one to be made, the auditors will have to help him make.
Okay,
Because if it was received in fiscal year 16-17,
which it would have been.
he has to receive it there versus showing here as a 15-16 revenue. They'll be, because it was
Okay.
received, the new fiscal year, not the old fiscal year, the actuals are gonna be different even though it was for here. There's an additional step that they'll have to help Doug do to close this year to actuals versus when it was received.
Okay, so if it's
It's
not
like a due
here,
from.
that's not a killer for the budget, but what we need to know is absolutely for sure that it's in the cash balances.
And that's what an A101 would tell when they've received it and put it into actual cash.
Do we, you
We
have,
have to
have you
get
received that
actuals.
A101 yet?
Tammy's got a full stack of them, so.
We'd have to get actuals, I'd have to get an actual,
She went through, I went through, and, because after this, because this says it's 100% received,
mhm,
and so I had her pull it up, and she went through every A101 and added them all, it was 844 and change.
Okay,
And
so
so-
then she does have it.
Yeah, so
Okay.
that's what she's got, but then I'm saying, okay, why do we have 100% received when, I mean, are we looking at 100% received as what was budgeted? or-
yes,
Yeah.
And that's why it's doing that.
yes.
And so it does, when you look at,
Mhm.
it's very tough to try to figure out a budget, what you're spending, what you're bringing in, when the numbers aren't.
And that's the unfortunate part of these reports is related, and this is part of the reporting program. Until the auditors help, it's saying we got 100% of what you budgeted. If we'd have budgeted 844, it would show 844. That's one of the
So
drawbacks.
yeah, 'cause we
And why we
budgeted-
have to make special entries at the end of the year, money that we're expecting that comes in the next fiscal year, but it's actually for this fiscal year, there's special entries. And that falls on Doug's side. And it's something that used to fall on my side, but now he's having to pick up, and with Black Mountain, he's having fits. It's just been a pain.
So this doesn't, this missing, and it's not missing, this not being reported in this is not the issue. As long as there's an A101, then it's reported into cash, so it's reflected in the reserves. Okay,
Yes.
all
I
right.
don't know.
So really you wanna focus, and that's where this year we're combining that you'll have to kind of crosswalk your 2302 fund and those accounts and make sure they're over under the 2300 fund. Cause we're
So you'll be looking
consolidating.
at two different revenues.
Because what's gonna do now, by putting it back under the one fund, you'll have your accounts are all gonna be under the public safety fund instead of the two separate funds. So like here, took all those accounts that were under the 2302 and made sure they're put over here. Put a priority. And that's why when you look at 2300, that shows zeros last year, because there was nothing there for last year. Last budget year. Same way with the prisoner meds, inmate telephone, inmate commissary. We have something there this year, but there's nothing showing last year because it wasn't under that fund, it was under the 2302 fund. So when budgeting this year's actuals, what you think you want, that's why they're under 2300.
What?
It didn't go apart overnight, so it comes back together overnight.
And Brandon makes a good point here, I guess, is that we're looking at, if you're looking at this 2302 of the 34,000 or 340,000 charge of services, it shows that the inmate telephone service is 118% of what was budgeted, but it doesn't specify anything more. It just says 100%, even though we were budgeted for 645 last year. And we had an increase of, well, even from here, almost $100,000, which is supposed to be showing 100%. So I guess that's,
Okay, the
So-
reason it shows is because we actually did get more receipted in the appropriate timeframe by June 30th. So when Doug got it, we'd actually received it before June 30th to recognize it in that fiscal year. Or if we got it July 1st, it's not showing here, it's showing in 16-17.
this is gonna be before June 30th as well. See what I'm saying?
I'll have to look, I don't know then what on
And this
Doug's
is-
side.
This is what's frustrating me, is that
Because that's on
there's
Doug's
no
side.
accurate numbers there. And that's, I mean, if we're gonna say that this is what we budgeted, is 4,600, you know, 119% increase,
Because you got more.
You got
You
more.
got more than you budgeted.
but we only had 645,000.
Then I would have to go back and we'd have to go to Doug and say, why isn't it showing here? If it was all received by June 30th,
Kind of my argument the last time we met was.
yeah,
These
then I'd
books
have to
aren't-
go dig it back.
you-
Because it's something he's not doing on his side, or they're receiving, and I found this before, is they put it under the wrong fund, might be the right account, but it's in the wrong fund, so it's not showing up right here. There's several accounts I had to go back and say, where'd it go? And that's on their side and they're receiving, and I have to go back, and that's why I have to go one by one
We probably need to,
See, well, just,
Yes.
not to be difficult, not to be a pain in the ass, I tend to be that way now, and I can completely agree with that. However, when it's not accurate, it makes us very difficult.
Yes, it does.
Okay, and obviously we can't,
because that would change the whole,
When you're basing it on actuals.
yeah.
and the thing is we're not talking $5,000 or $10,000. We're talking 300 March. God, good gracious, are we really that far off? That's the question I have. But when the records and the accounting aspect of it are this far off, are we really 300,000 off? And that's the thing, I'm not trying to take a dig at anybody here. But,
It happens, we're all human.
I don't wanna say, oh, let's, we were pretty thin last year. We ended up going over budget, and I don't wanna do that. But we sat down and went through things and everything else, and some of the stuff I got some wiggle room, sometimes I don't.
Okay, so is there a way, Debbie, can you work with Doug this week to get everything updated? To get us a, updated cash report, show us the $844,000, so that we can have an in-depth conversation on this next week?
Give me access to the receiving
Okay,
reports.
okay. Can we do that? Can we prioritize that?
You might have it.
So is that something that one of us needs to go
We can do that?
Yeah.
and have a conversation?
Because I was supposed to have access to all this, and I think there's a little hesitation.
Well,
Because of
this
mistakes
is,
and things,
sure.
and I can't look at this part of it if I don't have access to that.
Okay, so here's the thing. We're running out of time.
Oh, yeah.
This is getting ridiculous.
Well, if
So-
we don't have real numbers, how can we make, how can we, if I don't have real numbers to look at, or Commissioner Ober or Commissioner Slivka have real numbers to look at, like, who's to say that they're
Well, sure.
300,000 short?
And then I'm not
I
giving
mean,
you the
maybe
right
you're not.
information either. Because
I
I
mean,
want
that-
the same thing.
That's just, I mean, if we were to able to have real numbers and say, well, yeah, we're only shooting for the stars here, 100,000 short, then that changes a lot of things.
Do you know where all those A101s that she tallied up are?
Not her best. She hasn't.
Is she back?
Oh, yeah, she's,
Oh, she back?
yeah.
Can I look at those? Because then I can go say, you guys, that'll tell me right there.
Yeah, we'll set it tomorrow.
Okay.
And it's just, like I said, I'm not trying.
I know.
And
It's-
I'm really not. I
Just
just,
to figure this out.
yeah, I mean,
Right.
this is,
In today, I mean, well, not postponing, because we need to,
Yeah, I'm working with the same thing, and I'm not gonna know, because I don't see all the A101s. And this might be why my predecessor required 8 copies of every A101, so she can make sure it was right. And I have not requested that, I'm trying to exercise a little less paper distribution and trust. But if this is what's gonna happen,
I'd agree with Chairman Obert though, is we need to, this
oh yeah,
makes it
it's
very
gotta get
difficult.
fixed.
Yeah.
We have no meetings the week of the 20th, 19th, I think. Next week, I'm gone Tuesday through Friday for a Board of Crime Control retreat. 26th, we're done. This gets done.
Yep.
So we've got this week, really, and that's it. So, thank you. How much time do you need, Debbie, to either confirm these, double check them, change them if need be, so that we can have a serious, in-depth discussion?
I can look at A101, if they've got them all, I could look at them and tell which count's wrong, which one.
Are you guys available tomorrow morning? Postpone and have a work.
And then I have to go to
discuss?
Wilson and say, okay, you got it in the wrong spot, and have them move it.
I mean-
It's another,
Is tomorrow too early?
not necessarily.
where's your retreat? We just got there.
I know. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, you leave
next Tuesday.
next Tuesday.
Seriously.
Yeah. What's that?
You're saying no to that?
Well, that's also John Wright's trial that I guess I'm involved in.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's
No, I
kind
think
of
that
this
got
week.
moved.
It's moved.
Yeah.
You did?
You just got moved, yeah.
Oh, good,
The
all
other
right,
one- The other one's taken.
Take
precedence,
precedence.
so.
okay.
Tomorrow's Wednesday,
Good
right?
to know, thank you. Yeah,
Yes, I'm available in the morning.
how early?
I was here at 7 today.
At 7?
I'm good at any time.
Wait, how about you guys? What works for you guys?
Whatever.
Debbie? Maybe. 7 o'clock work for you tomorrow? Can you get everything from Doug?
Hopefully.
And
I
if-
don't know till I ask.
Well, yeah, and if we need to, one of us need to come down and.
Especially if that's huge.
Maybe
Well,
what
my
we,
concern is how many more?
can the 5 of us sit down, you, Doug, 3 of us, and hash this out this afternoon? Would that help?
If you need to.
Okay.
I'll tell you what. You have other examples? Were the A101s,
So,
You'll have
well,
a
that's,
total
what-
set from
That's,
Tammy,
you know,
Debbie.
the only thing that, you know,
or is that just the only one?
that's the one that really steps out. I mean,
Sure, well,
the-
it's 'cause it's
obviously the
huge.
two, the telephone services,
but don't those funds cannot be,
no, they can't, so they gotta be made.
so yeah, so that's something that we need to take into consideration, that those telephone funds and funds from,
Concert.
thank you, cannot be used other than for benefits of the inmates.
Now, the only thing that I was trying to find in maybe.
Which would save, some things too, you know, I mean, out of the budget, I mean.
Yeah.
Which I think we set up
Well,
an expenditure line for them
Right.
to show that money goes and where's it spent specific to the inmates to keep track of.
And I think the only revenue from the public safety side should be CWPs, which we had a discussion about. And then the other one was, I'm not seeing it here, oh, they are sheriff fees. And I was concerned on that just because it hasn't been much. 24/7's up to the courts. So, there's a couple of things there that, that obviously, they're outside my control, I
Yeah, well,
can't. So,
everybody's got those.
And you can, I can reprint the.
No, that's
one, So
fine.
you can
Yeah.
keep those.
those are a couple of things. I mean,
That way
unfortunately,
we're all
public safety is-
working the same numbers.
We've got to get to a place where we can have a discussion, because we know the problem. What we've got to find is a solution. And it's gonna take some serious work, but we've got to get to a point where we can at least start digging into the numbers.
Is the cash accounts, are they on this one? or-
Yeah, CFP's at the back end.
Okay, so we're spinning our wheels right now. What I suggest is, we get together as we need to. Debbie, you need to communicate with us, with Doug, to make sure we have those. You're gonna get the A101s from Tammy, these copies, so that you can confirm. We're going to meet tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. Lynn is going to bring coffee and donuts.
I don't think the donut shop's open, so.
Oh, you skated that one.
5 and bring in the morning.
There we go.
There's a will, there's a way.
But, and then we'll meet tomorrow morning. You wanna meet in your conference room?
That's fine, that's fine.
Okay, and so we'll just postpone this until tomorrow and see if we can hash through it. We need to discuss the general fund, and, the rest of the budget too.
You know, I guess I missed, did you guys meet on the first with the city? Oh, I missed that one.
That's all right.
Not sure how. I noticed it last night, I looked at my calendar.
And we'll be setting up a meeting for the work group in correlation of the interlocal agreement, that committee that was,
Pretty good.
yeah, so I'll be spearheading that probably the week, when are you gone?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm gonna be, Thursday morning at 0600.
Okay, so the week of the 12th, I'll probably that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday week.
There is a city council meeting this evening, I think
Yep.
it's one of them.
6 o'clock.
Is that, do you have, I don't, Jenny, there's nothing,
They are talking the budget at 6 o'clock is what I was told.
I have that on the agenda, do you have anything
They did not.
specific to
Nope.
public safety, so.
Yeah, I don't know. But I will be there for that too.
So will I. So, okay. I can have these.
Yes, yep, because I can reprint them off.
All right.
So
Sorry.
if you can have Tammy get the A11s to Debbie ASAP, all
Yep.
right.
Yep, perfect, okay.
And then if we need a fresh cash report, I'll have it too. All right. Thanks, gentlemen.
Sorry. Trying to be difficult.
Everybody's difficult this year. You're in good company.
I hope that this is
No, you do good work. Thanks, Wynn.
We'll get those over to you real quick, like.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Ann.
Thank you.
So, one of the things that I have found that's kind of ironic is the years that we have the biggest increases in mill levies, mill values, is when we have the most difficult budgets. And it truly is, I think, a subconscious, but and we're guilty too. Oh, there's extra money this year. We won't be as tight. Yeah, nobody has been tight this year. So, I went through and I don't know if you wanna just look at the email, if you wanna discuss this and make some cuts now. But,
Yeah, like I said, I went to print it off, but
okay.
technical difficulties didn't allow that.
And before we start, Debbie, I'm gonna ask you, the Dry Creek and the Deep Creek grants, the FEMA grants, in the revenue,
I got them added this morning
okay,
after your email. I guess I just,
well, and those were just done too,
yeah,
so.
and it kind of went as far as,
So with those added, I mean, that alone pops us up to a 25% reserve, right?
I don't know, I'm looking at yours, you've got some additional numbers in here that I didn't,
Yeah,
I'm playing with, because you said you made some extra cutbacks, so,
Yeah, it's, and honestly, I think
I need to go look at those, because they're.
after reading your email, like I said, I only got to skim it, a little bit. But I think that's, and that's what I've been trying to do with the packets that I was given was, going through each line item
Yeah,
and saying, okay, why, it's sort of like what I highlighted, 2 weeks ago when we sat through this process. Why are they asking for more money when they only spent 20%,
yeah.
of their budget? To me, that makes no
Mhm.
sense.
And I think
You
that's
know.
part of Val's, she only spent $90, and one of the line items she had budgeted 1,000. So we
Right.
spent 90 of the 1,000, so she budgeted 1,000 again this year, instead of what did she spend?
Right, and so that's, honestly, that's what I've been
And I know
spending my
district
time on.
courts are a little different, but still.
Right, cause you never
That one's
know,
underwater,
court,
yeah.
you just
Yeah.
never know. But honestly, that's, when I've been going through this budget, I highlight and go over, okay, this one, and I can understand, okay, if you're at 87, 90%, I can see the reason for an increase. But if you only spent, I would say that 75 range and below, there's no reason you should be increasing
Mhm.
whatsoever.
Yeah, because you kept your 25%.
Exactly.
And didn't use it.
Yep,
That's-
so you should not be going over, you should not, department heads should not be asking for an increase if they expended only 75% of their line item. And I think that's where, as Laura
Unless they
stated,
know an
right,
expense is gonna increase this year.
right, but in a lot of these line items that I've gone through, you don't have that. It's not, in actuality, if
They
you
just
take a
looked at
look
what
at
they
it,
budgeted last year, went with the same things and away they went.
yeah.
They didn't
And
look
that's,
at-
it is I told Laura that I was ready to pull my hair out last night because you sit there and go through each one of them and it's to the point where we're gonna have to, like Franklin said earlier, we're gonna have to just
Mhm.
start Because,
Well, if they want wage increases, they have to look at their their operating expenses, and can increase that too.
right,
It
and
won't
that's,
cover
that
it.
was my biggest, you know, and I'm all for the raises,
So they gotta decide what's more important. Can you do more and less?
Mhm.
I like to buy my own pens. Do stuff like that, little things like that, that gets your work by, but
Yeah, I like fine tips, so I buy my own.
yeah, see, I like a really fine tip, so.
Whatever,
Schools,
but I think
it's
we do
that
need
kind of
to,
idea.
right,
You know, repurpose, reuse, you don't need new folders
even looking
every
at
day.
the
Recycle them.
the library, you know, granted, they didn't get the money that, you know, they were hoping to, and they were able to overcome that. But let's go through this and see, okay, that's a huge jump. I mean,
Especially when they were at 50 and then suddenly the 2 years, they're 70,
Yeah.
that's. I
And
could
that
see,
might
I
be-
could, I could see
yeah.
gradual increases to get to
Bam.
70,
yeah,
but go to 53 to bang 70. What happened in that year?
yeah,
Well, it's been a couple of
2 years
years
ago.
Yeah,
actually.
well,
from
yeah.
the report.
The sheet that they gave last year and this year, both 70,000, where before that it was 50
right.
something. And then,
But I agree, I think, Laura, what needs to happen is, and whether we do it, you know, that was my plan today, is to continue to go through these budgets, go through each, and it is tedious, but that's what we signed on for. To go through each line item and say, okay, and then tomorrow morning, we go through and say, okay, this is what I came up with, what do you think about this? Sort of like what we did, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
You know, cause I just hit the major ones that jumped out at me. But I think it's something that we do have to spend in the time going line item to line item to get to that real number.
Yeah, and I would challenge the commission, it shouldn't be one bad guy who's
No.
doing all the cuts. All three of us are bad guys
Oh, yeah.
during the budget season, and I appreciate very much the work you've done. Franklin, I would expect that tomorrow morning you'll have some proposals as well and justifications on how you came up with those. And then the three of us can put our heads together and get this figured out. I don't think we are in that bad a shape. It's just we've got some work to do.
Yeah, it's just, we are gonna have to make some cuts. I agree, I don't think we're in terrible shape, but it's like I said earlier, we have public safety that has a need. We have obviously the library that has a need. Our general budget has a need. And we've discussed a little bit about planning. So there's three major entities of this community that has a need, and we have to figure out on what we can do. And making cuts is part of that, but we have to figure out that gap. Those are too
Yeah.
big, those three entities there just have too big of gaps for us not to pay attention to that.
Yeah, and the thing is we cannot cut our wrists to try and shift.
Right.
You know, we can't cut extension because their budget looks strong, because this is an ag community. We can't cut health insurance because that might have a little extra, because we have to pay that to our employees. We can't cut weed because it's a voted mill levy. We can't cut,
Oh yeah, there's certain things we can't even
Yeah.
touch because they're mills.
right,
So that makes us have to work harder, because literally, there are very few things that we can actually cut.
yeah. And when you look at the mills, community development, economic development, those are the things that bring in the revenue that makes cutting less. If we didn't have our 10.7%,
Yeah, we'd be in a lot of trouble.
we'd be cutting staff. So that economic development, that measly little amount, that saves jobs. All we're talking about here is cutting operations, paper, pens, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I will not put staff on the table
No.
for this, because it's not necessary,
No.
because we have a smart foundational budget in the proactive things that we do on the front end.
Right. And it's just gonna be it literally is going to be going line item through the 32 pages or 37 pages and saying, okay, look, this is what we're gonna have to, if we want this to work, you know, we might have to bring down something, you know, or recycle something, or whatever it might be to make this work, but it is gonna, it literally is going line item through line item in both aspects, the expenditure and revenue. And if there's a way that we can increase in some of the revenue without putting the burden on our staff, then we need to look at that aspect.
So another question I have is, we know we're getting together tomorrow morning at 7. I have an email from Brian Hopkins that he is available most afternoons, but not today.
Okay.
I asked him if he could meet with us today at 1:30 via the phone. He's available the rest of the week. How does a afternoon this week look for you guys to talk to Brian? This is kind of an
Does it work
important issue.
tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm free tomorrow afternoon.
Okay, 1:30?
Yep.
All right. I will email him and confirm you guys via email.
1:30 tomorrow.
Yeah.
You're available?
I don't know.
And tomorrow's a regular county meeting day, so,
Make it work, I guess.
all right. So we will postpone until tomorrow at 7 o'clock and then tomorrow at 1:30. Is that good?
Works.
All right. Oh, I do have just a couple of really small things. The road and solid waste departments. We are currently paying for the
Yes.
CDL exams for road department. What's that?
You had a claim here.
I did. Yeah, was that yours? I
Well,
thought
it was sitting
mine.
here, no, it was
Okay.
sitting here, so it was just, I don't know where it went.
Basically, we're paying for them, and this came about, it was kind of just an agreement between Elaine and Dana, and it's only been offered to the road department. Well, we also have solid waste that has CDLs, so what I'm thinking is, whatever this commission decides, yea or nay, it has to apply to all our employees who have CDLs. Oh, we'll have to figure out where we're paying that. It's been coming out of the commission's budget,
Yeah.
and we just don't have, and I don't think it should be paid from PILT. But that's probably not an emergency at this point.
No, I agree. And my conversation with Michelle is if, like you were stating, if it's good for the road department, then it needs to be good for, solid waste as well, because they need CDLs as well. So, you guys know, I'm very, if it's good for one of us, it's good for all of us. But then that's a concern that we need to really think about, because is it every 2 years that they need to do it?
Right, and it's
It's
$100.
$100 a pop.
Yeah.
So every 2 years. So are we gonna be getting 4 more of these from the road department?
Possible, and I know in the past, the contention was that if you're gonna be operating equipment and you can qualify for a job, having that CDL, you could go somewhere else with that CDL and quit here. So the contention was, the county shouldn't pay for it if you're gonna use it somewhere else. It's kind of like, we used to buy solid waste, just t-shirts and jeans, because that was work clothes. And the IRS auditor said that's a very gray area, because they could leave here tomorrow, and if we paid for that CDL and go get a better job somewhere else, we just paid for them to go somewhere else.
Sure.
Now, private industries do have the option. Is that a gray area we want to get into?
See, and I've done a little bit, and I wanna, and I'll have to check, but I believe, other counties do cover this, and I believe the state does as well for their employees. But I wanna clarify that before going on the record saying, yes, they do.
Yeah.
So,
If I could say, we, like at the sheriff's office, for sending people to the academy, in our bargaining agreement, if they leave within a certain amount of time, they prorate that, to pay that back, so maybe that's something, you
That
know,
might be a
Right.
contingency that if they
Yeah.
leave, they have to pay that money back, 4%
Sure.
of it.
so,
Make it less ludicrous, oh, I got it and I'm gonna leave because you
Right.
paid for it. Kind of like, I get
'Cause
this
it is
CPA
something
exam, I'm gonna go somewhere else. 'cause
Right.
you-
pay for it. So, I would, I would agree that we have to, if we're doing it for the road department, and that's been the past history, then we need to extend that to our solid waste. That's
Yeah.
just my stance on it. If we are going to continue in the past practices, then I would agree that, you know, they would have to stay for at least a year after this exam. And if not, then they have to pay $50, so half of it, or prorate, or whatever. I would agree with that,
It just makes sense.
yeah. So, I mean, if they're waiting to get their exam paid for, and they're like, hey, I'm out,
Mm-hmm.
then they need to have a prorated.
Cause I know they're not cheap.
No. And it's $500 every 2 years for just the road department, and then solid waste has how many?
3.
3, so that's $700
Mhm.
every 2 years.
In the weed department.
Is that CDL too?
I don't think
I don't
we
think
department
we
will
do
give
CDL.
you.
CDL operate.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But you're right, there's considerations down the road we
It
don't
depends on
know
what they're
of.
doing, because I know some weed supervisors have CDLs. I do
Right.
not need one being a part-time and most administration. I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, and
no,
I don't
it's-
think
it's a good
Scott
point.
has a CDL.
Maintenance could be a
Maybe with
CDL
6
need in the
yeah.
future. Mosquito
Yeah.
could be,
I know
so,
right now where the CDL is required just for those 2 departments,
yeah.
state law.
I would
but-
suggest that because this is past practice, this is, if, continuing forward, then there is gonna be a prorated payback if they leave after their exam is done. That's my stance on this.
So we should do a policy, you're working on a policy for the clothing
I am
allowance?
right now. I already got the clothing allowance done, and I can email that to everybody, that one's complete. They wanted in policy, that they wear the highly visible, personal protective equipment in policy, cause it's not in policy right now. So that's almost done, and I can put this in there as well.
That'd be great,
So
okay.
I'll work on all that.
All right. So, for now, I guess what we need to decide is this commission going to vote to go ahead and continue paying for the CDLs and implement the requirement that they stay with us for a year, or pay that back? Is that what you would say?
Yes, I would say
Okay.
yes to that.
All right. So, that's a form of a motion. Do we have a second?
Yeah, I don't know why we need to have to worry about them paying it back. I mean, we're talking $50. I mean, that's nothing. I mean, why even worry about it? We're gonna give it to them, the CD, or pay the exam, pay it.
But it's only $50 per that one person, but say we have 5 people.
Well,
50, that's
five people are-
$500.
yeah, wait a minute, what do you mean now?
If 5 people were to walk away after their exam's done, that's $500 that we're out.
Yeah, well, I guess it could happen, but.
Franklin, it's not necessarily the dollar amount that we're talking about. We're talking
Well, I
about.
know, that's what I'm saying. I'm not worried about the $50.
Would you let me finish speaking?
Go ahead.
Thank you. What we're talking about is a policy so that all employees are under a common understanding of what the county is willing to do and why. That's what this is for. We already have the precedent set with the union and the CBA. We're talking about just extending that to these other employees that have this requirement. We don't know in the future if the price will jack up. We don't know what else this could apply to. This is setting a policy so that we have a foundation to work with. Are you in agreement? Are you seconding the motion?
I'll second, don't make yours to me.
It's been moved and seconded that the commission will pay for the CDL exams for those employees who require it. And as long as that employee stays with us for a year after the exam, they will not be required to pay back. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye, motion carries. Franklin, that's what this job is. It's management of employees. It does make a difference to you. Thanks, Ann. Do you need this? Okay, I will take that back to our accounting department. And then the other last thing is silos. The Bureau of Reclamation wants to do a safety tour, and they have a safety officer coming from Billings that day. It's the 13th. I have a Youth Justice Council meeting. It's our quarterly meeting. It's all day. It is my district, but if one of you is available, it would be great
What
if you
day?
could go. 13th of this month, next Wednesday.
Yeah, I can do that.
Cool, thank you.
What time?
Or Tuesday, 1 o'clock. And they'll meet you right at the silos. It's Lee and Ryan.
Does the sheriff's office need to be involved in it at all, or?
If you want to, it's new, after the death of the boy. This is something that I think they've kind of had in policy but not practice. So, yeah, if one of you is available or, you know, deputy or
I'll have
somebody.
a trial, but.
Oh, come back from South
Maybe the
Dakota.
sheriff might do it.
I'll send an email to Win and see if he wants to send somebody.
Sounds good.
All right, thanks you guys. Anything else for the good of the order? Any
City
last
council
public comment?
meeting tonight.
Are we recessing so that
Thank
you can do
you.
tomorrow
Yes,
morning?
yes, we are recessing.
Okay.
Thank you, Ann. All right, so, I won't even gavel, it's 1:09, we're recessed.
Yeah, it's, she just wants to just make copies, but she
Yeah.
wants to bring this back.
Okay.
And it breaks it down, DOC,
We'll close
Lewis
what
Park,
we do.
miscellaneous.
We should change it
Forty.
7, because it is a meeting, but,
And I'm wondering if they took one of these other payments and put it into another revenue line. I'll find out, I'll find out.
yeah.
They can do it.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, just let me know when you're done, I'll.
Okay,
I can
thanks,
make-
Ann.
Thank you.
Hey, do you want this?